you have joined us here this morning for this very important discussion on the case for advanced manufacturing in our nation. Let me begin by thanking Congressman Jan Schakowsky and Congressman Don Manzullo for their support and their staff's dedication to this event this morning. The Center for Labor and Community Research is the managing partner of the National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign. The National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign is a nonpartisan strategic partnership of business, labor, community, and education and government who are committed to ensuring America's global competitiveness in innovation and the production of complex products. To this end, member organizations of the NMRC are guided by 4 unique principles. Number 1, the United States must become the global leader in the art of producing complex products. Our competitive advantage is a strategic partnership of business, labor, community, government, and education. A world-class educational system is a fundamental requirement for a strong advanced manufacturing sector. And finally, a strong advanced manufacturing sector builds communities, a broad middle class, and can drastically reduce poverty in urban centers. The NMRC is united by a shared belief that our nation has a very small window of opportunity to strengthen our industrial base and secure America's place as the global leader in the production of advanced products. To be sure, this is the most important public issue of our decade. Today's briefing will set the stage for further conversations between our office and your congressional offices and different organizations. Our speakers for today's briefing will demonstrate the power of unlikely partners who, although maintain their individual organizational positions, are able to unite around a central issue that is critical for the American quality of life. Before we begin our presentations this morning, I would like to invite a good friend, COCR, and a strong partner behind this effort in the National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign, no other than Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. Let us all give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Leonard McInnes, for your leadership. I also want to thank Dan Swinney for being here. I've worked with them for a number of years now to try and reboot advanced manufacturing in our area, in our educational system, and in our country. I want to thank Don Manzullo, his staff here. I know they've been working very hard on this as well, and I'm proud to partner with him. I just want to tell you, I'm reading a book by Tom Hartman called Rebooting the American Dream, and it starts out with George Washington being informed about the fact that he won the presidency and now looking for a made-in-America suit that he could wear for the inauguration. And it was hard to find because most of the actual manufacturing, although the agricultural products, the cotton, etc., was made here, was produced in the colonies at first. The manufacturing was all done in England and had to be imported. And he finally found someone in Connecticut that was actually able to make a couple of suits for him for the occasion and get it done in time. But when he became president, he assigned Alexander Hamilton, the Secretary of the Treasury, who came up with an 11-point manufacturing plan in order to really start the Industrial Revolution in the United States of America. This wasn't sort of an obvious thing to do, but that was a goal of the early first president of the United States. What we don't have in this country really is an integrated manufacturing plan for our country that includes the educational component. So I want to thank you for pulling together such a great panel of speakers. I particularly want to welcome Jorge Ramirez, who is the president of the Chicago Federation of Labor and a longtime good friend and partner. And it is easy to be bipartisan on this common sense issue, promoting a resurgence of the manufacturing base in the United States. And we do face a choice, just as the first president did. We can either rebuild our manufacturing capacity and invest in the promising world of advanced manufacturing, or we can concede defeat. Here's a man who will not concede defeat when it comes to American jobs, Congressman Don Manzullo, and allow more and more of our manufacturing base to move overseas. And neither one of us are willing to concede defeat. So this briefing will highlight many of the pieces that need to work together in order to move forward. Partnerships between the public and private sectors, partnerships between business and labor, a vision for manufacturing campaign and how we can educate the workforce that will fill the thousands or millions of good jobs that manufacturing can produce. The Chicago Manufacturing Renaissance Council and the Austin Polytechnical Academy in Chicago have set new standards for what is possible in an approach to education that links to real careers, that make the expanding of our manufacturing base possible, and that brings not just hope but actual opportunity to the communities like Austin throughout our country. This type of initiative has the power to create a generation of workers and leaders with the skills to go directly into high-paying jobs in the advanced manufacturing and technology industries, or to go on to college or advanced degree programs. And I'm so glad that an Austin student, where are you, Troyes Hughes? Where are you on the panel? Thank you for being here to share his experience at Austin. And I hope this briefing will stimulate a powerful conversation to encourage and facilitate the replication of these approaches in congressional districts across the country, and together we can shape a national manufacturing renaissance campaign. So thank you all for participating today, and I again thank the panel for what you're going to tell us, except I want to tell you I have to run out to a committee hearing. Megan Michaud, who works on this issue in my office, will be here, and I know that it's going to be a very productive morning. Thanks so much.
You know, this issue of advanced manufacturing, as the Congresswoman has indicated, is not simply a matter of a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. This really is what we consider to be an American issue. And to demonstrate this unlikely partnership and the bipartisan effort behind this particular issue of advanced manufacturing, America's competitiveness, and a case for a world-class educational system, I'd like to take this time to invite the other co-sponsor of this event this morning, and that is Congressman Don Manzullo, for some remarks this morning. Congressman?
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. I spend about 3/4 of my time on manufacturing issues. Everything from minerals and petroleum, which is the basis of all manufacturing, all the way through export controls. And it's always good to see people coming together trying to figure where the United States is going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, in light of I call it the so-called march of technology, because at one time knowledge was discovered and today it's invented. And so I want to thank the National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign, to Leonard McGinnis, Center for Labor and Community Research, and to all the speakers here this morning. About 8 years ago, Congressman Tim Ryan and I formed the Manufacturing Caucus. We now have about 84 members in the caucus. The caucus was formed in direct response to the threat to eliminate our last 3 titanium manufacturers in this country. And the sponges coming in from the Ukraine, and not enough domestic titanium was being consumed in the defense area, so that we were really concerned about it. Tim and I put together a meeting that resulted in the so-called basket approach of a balance between foreign and domestic titanium that helped resolve the issue and help keep open the 3 titanium companies in our country. I'm very much concerned over the fact that we have an anomaly going on. There are over 600,000 manufacturing jobs open in this country. There are over 600,000 manufacturing jobs open in this country. There are over 600,000 manufacturing jobs that are open in this country. The reason I emphasize that is the fact that people say we need to return manufacturing back to this country. It's coming back from China and other areas because of the ingenuity and the precision and the availability of incredible workers in this country, especially in the areas of gears, and then we've now seen the return, the renaissance of castings. The problem is this. Illinois, for example, has 10% unemployment. There are thousands of manufacturing jobs that are open in the state of Illinois. We have 10% unemployment, and there's this gap between the manufacturing jobs that are open and all these people who are unemployed. A lot of the problems have to do with the unemployment system itself. Because in Illinois, you can apply for unemployment over the telephone. You don't have to show up at the unemployment center. You don't have to participate in a skills assessment. And when somebody says you ought to look for a job, nobody's there to monitor the fact that you did not pass the drug test, so you continue to stay on unemployment compensation. Well, the rates go up for employers in the state. The employers cannot hire the people that they need, and there's still this group of people who are unemployed and underemployed. Something is dramatically wrong in this country. We have proceeded so far to lean down manufacturing, to get the ISO and AS certifications that are necessary, to make sure that our manufacturers are competitive around the world, and now we're at the point where if they can't get workers, they're going to start offshoring. So we've got a crisis on our hands. And we have to move on that in a way that recognizes the fact that 80 years ago in this country, somebody came up with the conclusion that working in manufacturing is not cool. And because your dad worked around oil and grease, you shouldn't have to do that. And that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong today now with manufacturing. I'm not going to use the notes I made here because they're irrelevant at this point. But I just want to charge you with the fact that we can talk all we want about becoming more lean in manufacturing. We can talk all we want about the latest technologies, and these are good because we need these to become more competitive. But we have this huge area of the jobs are there, and the employers are telling me, why are people applying for jobs and education? And so that's where your group comes in, to bridge that education gap. I was in Switzerland 5 years ago studying the education system there and how it relates to manufacturing. At age 15, kids make a decision in high school to either go into manufacturing or into non-manufacturing. Non-manufacturing would be surgeons, doctors, business, etc. But in Switzerland, the kids who get involved in manufacturing don't get put on a bus and carried off to so-called Votech Center. Or others look at them and say, there go those people who are doomed to be low-wage earners the rest of their lives. That's not recognized in Europe. And that's why Europe is the leader now in machine tools, machine tool manufacturing. Because people in Europe do not disdain those or look unseemly at those people who are involved in manufacturing. It's a brand new era out there where the United States has to heighten the awareness of manufacturing and make it a lot more attractive to people to go into manufacturing. I guess I'm more frustrated than anything. I can't stick with one, but I'm sure you guys share the same type of frustration with the jobs that are open. But let me just take a minute or so to tell you what the Manufacturing Caucus is involved in. Tim Ryan and I are working with the plastics, the composites, the chemical industries in an attempt to save the plastic industry. I'm going to throw this out because it's a sleeper that's deadly. HHS has said that styrene is a carcinogen. Unlike the findings from the EU and Canada, HHS, through the National Toxicology Board, came up with this disastrous finding. We're trying to get the National Academy of Sciences to do an independent review of all the art that's available. If this holding maintains from HHS, we already are seeing insurance companies that are unwilling to insure plastics companies. Styrene is used in 95% of plastic composites. and at over 50% of irregular plastic resins. We could see the demise of the entire plastics industry in this country. That's over 1 million direct jobs. That's 1/3 of the manufacturing sector in this country. And so we got involved, both Tim and I, on a nonpartisan basis, because just to save this manufacturing sector, it's an indication of the injury that government can do and damage that government can do based upon the fact that many people who make these decisions know absolutely nothing about manufacturing. And so we continue to work with these groups to try to make available the fact that members of Congress are very much concerned over the loss of 1/3 of our manufacturing jobs. This doesn't even take into consideration the fact that the people who make the molds and the insert injection and all the different things that are involved in the plastics industry could leave. We have a company in our district called First American Plastics. It's owned by an Indian tribe. They have a facility in Mississippi that makes all the plastic utensils for McDonald's. If the holding of HHS stays there, they will say the end product of a styrene composite or styrene resin is not toxic, but the manufacturing of it is. You know what that means? They'll just move everything offshore, and they'll be gone. But I wanted to raise that because this is what we do in the manufacturing caucus because of the mischief often that occurs at the hands of bureaucrats who know absolutely nothing about manufacturing. And so, I guess with that note, I wish, is there going to be a transcript or a tape made
Yes.
of, because I really would like to get my hands on that, and I've got to go up to a hearing, guess what? I'm manufacturing, and prepare for that, but thank you for the invitation. I look forward to reading your statements, watching the tape. Elaine Wilson, Elaine, you want to stand up? Elaine does our manufacturing work. Her father runs Gear Wizard in suburban Chicago. She knows the difference between hobbing and shaping of gears and anything else that involves the intricacies of manufacturing. So thanks for the opportunity. Who will see our office later on? We can work with Elaine on that. Okay. Thanks again and good luck. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We're going to move right into our program. Now, our speakers this morning will speak to you on various topics for about 7 minutes apiece. And our first speaker is Dr. Robert Atkinson, the president of the Innovation and Information Technology Foundation. Dr. Rob Atkinson is one of the country's foremost thinkers on innovation economics. He has an extensive background in technology policy and has conducted groundbreaking research projects on technology and innovation, and is also a valued advisor to state and national policymakers and a popular speaker on innovation policy nationally and internationally. He has testified before Congress, various news outlets, and is here this morning to share with you some great information on innovation and advanced manufacturing. Rob Atkinson.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Leonard, and to Dan, it's a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to start off, I have 7 minutes, so I want to ask you if anybody here knows the connection of these two numbers, 0% and negative 34%. To me, those two numbers are intimately linked. And the first number, 0%, is the amount of jobs we've created since 2000. None, 0. We haven't created a net new job in 11 years in this country. Negative 34 is the percentage of manufacturing jobs we've lost over that period of time. Now, I'm going to say something totally radical, totally out of the box. I think those two numbers might be connected. Now, I'm sort of tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but if you follow the Washington debate about the jobs crisis, almost no one says those two numbers are connected. And to me, it stares you in the face. The fact that we've lost 34% of our manufacturing jobs, more of a loss than any other country in world history, in a faster period of time, where there's a multiplier of manufacturing jobs, the highest multiplier of any jobs in the economy. So if you lose a restaurant job, not to knock restaurants, but very low multiplier. If you lose a manufacturing job, you have a multiplier probably 3, if not higher. So we're talking essentially the amount of manufacturing jobs that we lost, not because of productivity, but because of loss of output in U.S. manufacturing. We're talking essentially about 8 million jobs. Now, if you were to take those and jobs, put them back in the economy, the unemployment rate is about 3%. So I think there's a relationship here, and to me, that's why manufacturing is important. And I know a lot of the focus on manufacturing, particularly here today, is about the importance of manufacturing for why we, workers who have maybe mid-level skills and not a college degree, or the importance of manufacturing for certain communities, or even certain regions. Absolutely, that's true. But what I would argue that you all need to do is when we make the case for manufacturing, it can't be making the case that it helps a few individuals or a few communities. It is central to the entire economic health of America, whether you have any manufacturing in your region or your district or not. So when you look at some of the numbers here, we estimate, and there's a report out here that we recently wrote called The Case for a National Manufacturing Strategy. As I said, the manufacturing output is down 10%. So I think that's really the context in which we need to think about this. The other piece of this too is there's a view out there, well, you know, manufacturing, it's like, you know, it's okay if we lose t-shirt jobs, or, you know, if we lose low-end commodity, you know, nuts and bolts jobs. But we're really good at high-tech manufacturing. In fact, we have now, since this decade, since the start of 2000, we've been running a trade deficit in high-tech manufacturing as well as low-tech, if you will, manufacturing. So we're not even able to be strong on that. Now, I think fundamentally we have about 10 years at most to fix this problem. And if we don't fix the problem, we end up in a situation like Great Britain, where once you lose it, it's very, very hard to get back. This isn't like a call center where, you know, if we were to eliminate all our, pass a rule and say no more call centers because there's some cancer for using the phone. So you can't use the phone. And then we rescind the rule and we get all the call centers back in a couple of years, because it's not very hard to set up a call center and train workers and all that stuff. It is really, really hard to replace manufacturing because it's a complex ecosystem of suppliers, of technical institutes, of OEMs, and of skills. And that's a lot of what today is about, is if we lose that, it's very, very hard to bring it back. So we're going to be releasing, probably later this year, a comprehensive manufacturing strategy. And in our view, there's really 4 things, and I'll just close with that, what we call the 4 T's. And if we don't get the 4 T's right, we simply can't do it. Trade policy, we've got to be much more aggressive going after foreign mercantilists. Tax policy, we've got to have a better tax policy that encourages and incents manufacturers and other companies to invest in new machinery and equipment, and R&D. Technology policy, the Germans invest 20 times more than we invest in their support for small and mid-sized manufacturers. We have a great program in the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, but it's very, very small compared to what the Germans do, what the Japanese do, what the Canadians do, what the Brits do. And lastly, talent. The 4 T's, and that is a key component of making sure that as we modernize manufacturing, we have the skills to do it. And that's really what today is about. So thank you very much.
We're going to adjust the program just slightly to accommodate the schedule of our next speaker, Mark Morial, who has to leave here and go to a different meeting of this sort. And so Mark Morial is a former Louisiana State Governor and also the former mayor of New Orleans, and he currently serves as the president of the National Urban League. His creativity has led to initiatives such as the Urban Youth Empowerment Program to assist young adults in securing sustainable jobs and entrepreneurship centers in 5 cities to help growth of small businesses. I'd like to welcome to the podium Mr. Mark H. Morial.
Well, good morning. Thank you for elevating me to the governorship of Louisiana without having to run a campaign. Yes, but let me thank you for the introduction. I had the pleasure of serving in the Louisiana State Senate, but I'll take the governor's office, straighten some things out. First of all, let me thank you for adjusting your program to hear from me today. Presently, I am proud to lead the National Urban League, a historic civil rights organization that's unique because we have for 100 years focused on job training and workforce development. And we grew up because of the industrialization that took place in the first half of the 20th century. As the great migration of African Americans from the South took place to the industrial cities of the North, the National Urban League founded itself in those northern industrial cities to assist the newly arriving residents in connecting with those new jobs, in connecting with housing opportunities, and in connecting with a better quality of life. We have been witnesses over the last quarter century of the deindustrialization of America. And we've seen corresponding to that the rise in urban poverty, the rise in joblessness, and the effect that it has had on median income. I invite your attention to a report released yesterday. It's talked about in this morning's New York Times by the Levin Center on deindustrialization and the loss of manufacturing in the state of New York. The state of New York having lost more manufacturing jobs in the last 40 years than any other big state, including Michigan. But what is striking is the effect it has had on the median income of the residents of New York, where in 1970, the median income of the residents of many of the outer boroughs in New York City exceeded the national median income level. Now it is less. So what goes along with this deindustrialization that has taken place is a diminution in the quality of life in this nation, an increase in the gap between the haves and the have-nots. That's not my opinion. Those are facts. Those are facts. I've come today because I believe that this is a big, important need for there to be a paradigm shift in our thinking about economic policy in this nation. Great nations build things. Great nations build things. Build great infrastructure, build great products, leverage talent, innovation, and technology to build great things. Go back through world history and look at all the great nations and empires. We fooled ourselves into thinking that innovation and technology was separate from building and manufacturing and not inextricably linked. We have to shift and focus in this nation on building a future economy that does have some centrality about building things and advanced manufacturing. And why I'm excited to be a part of this coalition is because I believe what that leads to is better paying jobs, more sustainable jobs that pay better wages that will lead to a better quality of life for more people. Because when you build things, and when you make things, and when you assemble things, the multiplier effect through the economy is great. This morning I woke up, got into my Chevy automobile, put on my Canadian-made suit, packed my son's foreign-made saxophone, and put on these cheap Chinese-made cufflinks. And I encourage all of you as you go through your daily lives to look at the things you use and where they are made. When you do your holiday shopping, look at what you purchase and where it is made. We have to shift the paradigm. The gentleman before me talked about trade, technology, tax, and talent policy. He's absolutely right. And if our outcome is that we want to create better and more sustainable jobs, then we will focus on manufacturing. I will leave here, and I appreciate you all giving me an opportunity to speak because I'm going to a commission that I'm proud to serve on at the Department of Education on equity and excellence in education. Equity and excellence in education. And if changing the way we do secondary education in this country, to focus on marketable skills, to focus on real, meaningful job opportunities while you are attending school, is not one of the keys to more equitable outcomes in closing the achievement gap. I will bring this message to that meeting today because I think the two are closely linked. So I want to commit the National Urban League and our affiliate movement to working closely with this alliance because we understand at a very basic level why deindustrialization has negatively affected urban communities and why a better focus on advanced manufacturing and training people for the jobs can improve the quality of life and help us address joblessness and give our consumers a way to spend and multiply more of their money on things made in this country. I'm going to take those 600,000 jobs that open and I'm going to put them in my pocket because I could probably go out if we had training slots for 600,000 people. I could probably find 600,000 people probably by 5 p.m. today to fill those slots because there are people out there who want to work. We have to connect them with the skills that they need in order to do this. So thank you so much. And to Congressman Dan and Congresswoman Jan, it's a positive thing to see people working on both sides of the aisle in tandem on an important and very big issue. And I hope out of this we can find some consensus about some public policy direction, but also a consensus about messaging and discussing and talking about this, not in Washington speak, but in the speak that people out in the communities understand. How is this going to improve job prospects and quality of life for me and my children and the future of this nation? So Dan, thank you for including us. Good luck, and it's good to see all the congressional staffers here. We appreciate, I just want to tell you, I appreciate your work and your commitment and certainly your future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a co-chair for the Chicago Manufacturing Renaissance Council. He's also the president of Water Saver Faucet, Stephen A. Kirsten, and also Guardian Equipment Incorporated. Water Saver Faucet is a leading worldwide manufacturer of faucets, valves, and related products for use in science laboratories. Guardian manufactures emergency eye wash and shower equipment for use in a wide variety of applications, including industrial, petrochemical, semiconductor, and scientific. Help me to welcome Stephen A. Kirsten to the podium.
Thank you. I guess I am speaking from the front lines of American manufacturing as opposed to the other presenters who are talking more in terms of policies and strategies. So let me tell you a little bit about my company and what we do and what we're trying to accomplish. As you just heard, we manufacture specialized faucets and valves that are used in science laboratories. So if you think back to science class when you were in high school or college, the big gooseneck style faucets, the little valves with lever handles that you hook up Bunsen burners to, that's what we make. That's our product line. We make all the plumbing hardware associated with a science laboratory. We're the largest manufacturer of these products in the world, but that's really not saying very much because it's a very small, specialized market. So we think of ourselves really as the classic niche business. We're a third-generation family-owned company. I would take all the time allotted to me to tell you the story of how we wound up in this. My grandfather was a plumber by trade, became a plumbing contractor in Chicago, started dabbling and inventing plumbing-related products, and in the 1920s wound up designing and patenting the internal working mechanism of a faucet. After World War II, my father came back from service. He and his father decided they would go into business together, manufacturing these faucets that my grandfather had been playing around with. It's grown from there. As I said, we're the largest manufacturer of science lab faucets in the world. We're in a very odd location. We've always been in the heart of Chicago. We're about a mile north and west of downtown Chicago, right off the Kennedy Expressway. We operate 2 state-of-the-art, LEED Gold certified manufacturing plants totaling about 160,000 square feet. We employ 240 people in head of household jobs in Chicago. From our location in the heart of Chicago, we supply most of the science laboratories built in the United States, and we export our products all around the world. We maintain sales offices in Manchester, England, and in Singapore. We do significant amounts of business in Canada, Mexico, the UK, the Middle East, China, and India. What makes all this possible is the fact that our products are very small and very dense, so they're very easy to put in a box and ship all the way around the world. However, as easy as it is for us to supply a lab in England or Saudi Arabia or Bangalore, India, that's how easy it is for a non-US company to ship their products this way. So we really represent, in our small way, a microcosm of the American economy. We source raw materials and components globally, we sell globally, and we compete globally. Many of our foreign competitors have significant advantages over us in terms of their labor costs. We all buy basically the same raw materials at about the same prices. We all have basically the same machines. So in order for us to survive, we need to differentiate ourselves. And we do this by offering consistent, superior quality, short lead times, and the ability to respond to our customers' needs by innovating and customizing our products. And all of that comes down to the people who are on the shop floor. I don't make any faucets myself. I have 239 people doing that for me. And those people have to do a really good job at it if we're going to survive. So what do I need from those people? I need people who can read and understand engineering prints and work instructions. I need people who can do shop math. Need people who are computer literate. And I need people who have the skills to operate the machines that we run. Unfortunately, our high schools and colleges have not been producing enough of these people. For a long time, as everybody knows, manufacturing has not been viewed as the land of opportunity. So young kids have not gravitated towards this area. Schools have de-emphasized their programs in this area. And as a result, we have significant challenges in staffing and running our operations. We chose to partner with the Chicago Manufacturing Renaissance Council and to support Austin Polytech Academy because we believe that their programs will ultimately provide us the people that we need to run our business. So I funded the establishment of what Dan calls the Advanced Manufacturing Technology Center. I call it the machine shop. We paid for the machines, we paid the salaries of the instructor to come and teach machining for the first year that he was there, all because the Chicago public school system wouldn't. However, this money came with 2 very important strings attached. One is I said you have to name the machine shop the Water Saver Faucet Company Center so that everybody knows where it came from. And number 2, I get first crack at your top students. My company and the 65 other manufacturing companies that have supported Austin Polytech have provided over $250,000 to the school. Just as importantly, we also supply non-monetary support. Austin Polytech routinely brings groups of students to our factory for our factory tours. Many of these kids have never seen a manufacturing plant. They don't really know what it looks like. We've had students on site for job shadowing programs and for summer internships. We had 3 interns with us last summer. 2 had just graduated from the school. 1 was going into their senior year. And I have to tell you, having these 3 kids there was a really gratifying experience. It really gave a human face to everything that we're talking about today. These kids all come from the west side of Chicago, and they're growing up under very challenging circumstances. But they were all smart and earnest and really sincere. I would be happy to have them come to work for us permanently. to me, they just seem to be asking for an education and an opportunity to succeed. And I think we as a society and owe that to them, and we owe it to ourselves to provide that to them. So what I'd like to say, I guess, in conclusion, is that there's a lot of variables that go into making our business succeed or fail. Many of these variables I have no control over. I can't control the cost of our raw materials. That's based upon the worldwide supply and demand for copper and zinc. I can't control the cost of health insurance. I can't do anything about the crazy workers' compensation system in Illinois. I can't do anything about the exorbitant property taxes in Cook County. However, by investing in Austin Polytech, I've got a chance of controlling what is probably the most important variable that goes into our business. I'm very optimistic about the future of Austin Polytech, and I think it will help us staff our company with bright, capable, motivated people. I would encourage each one of you today to consider how schools like Austin Polytech and programs similar to theirs can be strengthened and expanded on a broader scale. Thank you.
Let me now invite to the podium Jorge Ramirez, who serves as the president of the Chicago Federation of Labor. Jorge Ramirez was elected president of the CFL in 2010. He previously served as secretary-treasurer. Prior to joining the Chicago Federation of Labor in 2006, Ramirez was elected vice president and served as executive director of Local 1546 of the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union, representing nearly 30,000 members in Chicago and throughout Illinois. I'm pleased to welcome Jorge Ramirez.
Thank you, Leonard. We've all been joking a little bit about the size of these pictures. It's scary for me. So good morning again. Leonard, thank you for the introduction. Most importantly, I want to thank our two distinguished congressional leaders in Congresswoman Schakowsky and Don Manzullo. It's great that we have their dedication and interest in this topic here in our nation's capital. This topic is extremely important to America's present and its future. And I want to thank all of you for your attention and support today. Again, my name is Jorge Ramirez, President of the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Chicago Federation of Labor represents about 320 different local unions throughout Cook County, which also is the home county to the city of Chicago. Of those 320 affiliated locals, there's approximately 500,000 working men and women that comprise our organization. I'm also co-chairman of the Chicago Manufacturing Renaissance Council, which is a partnership between labor, business, education, and governmental entities. As a response to a 2001 study commissioned by the Chicago Federation of Labor and conducted at the Center for Labor and Community Research. We conducted a study back in 2001, which was titled Creating a Manufacturing Career Path System in Cook County. It addressed the need for a better system of preparing individuals for a successful career in manufacturing, particularly high-road, highly skilled jobs that can support a middle-class lifestyle. Not only did the study lay the groundwork for the Chicago Manufacturing Renaissance Council, but it also made possible through funding. It was made possible through funding from the United States Department of Labor. While it might be an unlikely partnership on paper, in practice, it's extremely sensible, productive, and valuable to stakeholders from different sectors at the table working toward a common goal. Labor, in this case, wasn't stuck in its old way. Rather, it was leading the discussion, leading the reform. We represent teachers and have engaged them in this process. This is the kind of approach that can be another way teachers can lead education reform to prepare our nation's youth for a productive career with good jobs. While the number of manufacturing jobs in the U.S. has declined in the last few decades, there is a growing need for advanced workforce that is educated, trained, and certified to compete at the highest end of production. These are jobs that are here in America and aren't crossing our borders or our oceans, as long as we can fill them with the skilled workforce here at home. Chicago, like many U.S. cities, has relied on manufacturing as a significant part of its economy. Rather than watch these jobs disappear as the current aging workforce leaves the market, we pulled together leaders from industry, from government, from economic development, from education, and from labor to develop a strategic, bipartisan solution-oriented approach to this looming crisis. The Chicago Federation of Labor and our affiliates are proud to be the center of such an innovative partnership. Chicago's unions know full well the importance of a highly skilled workforce. It is a source of pride to represent the best trained workers in the marketplace. It also means we understand how to prepare workers to compete through our commitment to education and to training. For us, this isn't an issue of union or non-union. Rather, it's an issue of supporting an industry that is the focal point of our economy in Chicago. It's supporting an industry that has the potential to support middle-class families for future generations. It's supporting an industry that can truly be a leader in the global marketplace. Those are all the issues that we support. The Chicago Manufacturing Renaissance Council is a model that has been successful in Chicago and can offer some lessons for our national strategy. I'm proud to be part of the National Manufacturing Renaissance campaign to help broaden the scope of our work to a larger audience. We are grateful for the support we have received so far and look forward to continuing this work and what is a benefit for business, workers, and communities. Advanced manufacturing is one way we can grow our economy and build the middle class. With thoughtful, collaborative action, we can help a skilled workforce throughout this country that is fully trained and can lead the industry in the 21st century economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. I'm now pleased to invite Robert Schwartz to the podium. Robert Schwartz is the academic dean of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Robert Schwartz held a variety of leadership positions in education and government before joining the Harvard Graduate School of Education in 1996. From 1997 to 2002, Robert Schwartz also served as president of Achieve Incorporated, an independent, bipartisan, nonprofit organization created by governors and corporate leaders to help states improve their schools. I should also say that Robert Schwartz is one of the principal authors of Multiple Pathways, a very important piece on education policy in our country. And our staff, once we read Multiple Pathways many months ago, knew that there was something to this piece in relation to what we were doing in Chicago with the CMRC and with Austin Polytechnic Academy. I'm now pleased to welcome Robert Schwartz.
Thanks very much, Leonard. It's really a pleasure to be here. You've heard the economic argument, you've heard the employer argument, you've heard the labor argument. I'm going to give you the education argument for why this agenda is so important. As Leonard indicated, we issued this report called Pathways to Prosperity here in D.C. Back in February at a precedent with Secretary Duncan and others. And three of us did this: an economist, Ron Ferguson, who's done a lot of work on the achievement gap, a former journalist, Bill Simons, who covered education for Business Week, and me as a kind of policy activist type. Ever since the report was issued, Bill Simons in particular has been on the road almost continuously, just responding to invitations from organizations really all around the country, wanting to use the report to start a conversation about whether or not the direction that we've been headed in with this focus on four-year colleges, the destination for all young people, is really the right strategy for the country. This report really has no new research behind it. We simply brought together three different kinds of data, and I think because we hired a journalist to write it, it kind of has captured people's attention. On the one hand, we looked at the college completion data. As you probably know, I mean, despite the fact that over the last 10 or 15 years there's been this kind of enormous pressure to sort of raise aspirations of young people. If you ask young people in high school, what are you going to do after high school, 90-something% say, we're going on to college. Over 70% of kids who graduate actually do enroll within a year in some post-secondary education. But if you ask the hard question, which is by age 25, what proportion of young Americans actually have a college degree, in terms of a four-year college, it's about 30%, and that number has barely budged over the last decade. Another 10% have a degree from a two-year institution, but that does raise the question, what is our national strategy for the more than half of young people who arrive in their mid-20s without a credential? And in this economy, without skills and credentials, obviously, you're in real trouble. Since the report was issued, 3 or 4 different sources of data have kind of come along to really reinforce our point. One is that there was a report in the New York Times following a sample of young people graduated in 2010, a year later, from four-year institutions. Over 40% of those people were either unemployed or working in jobs that didn't really require a college education. Second report from the state of Florida, looking at graduates of the public institutions in Florida, showed us that those with 2-year technical degrees were out-earning those with 4-year degrees, this is the class of 2009, by about an average of $10,000. So our old notion that simply going off to college and getting any kind of degree in any kind of field was going to give you protection, security, insurance, in this economy, that's an increasingly shaky proposition. The second source of data we looked at, in addition to the college completion rates, was what's actually happening on the job side. And again, as others have said here, for a while, economists were telling us that we were heading into this kind of bifurcated economy. The middle was disappearing. There were only going to be high-skilled jobs and low-skilled jobs. Well, we have a lot of evidence now that roughly a third of the new and replacement jobs projected out over the next decade will be in this kind of middle skill category that we've been hearing about. Jobs that clearly will require skills, will require some education, typically beyond high school, but not necessarily a 4-year degree. The third source of evidence or data that we looked at really drew upon 2 reports issued by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development that does policy studies looking across the 30 developed nations that are part of members of OECD. In the last year, one report that I had the privilege of working on was called Learning for Jobs, a 16-country look at how countries prepare young people to get from secondary school into the labor market. The second one looking from the employment side called Jobs for Youth. Both of these studies really support the proposition that those countries that actually invest in equipping a majority of young people from their from roughly age 16 on with a mix of work-based learning opportunities and continuing academic education, but in highly structured programs in which employers play a major role in the design of the programs to ensure that they are linked with where the economy is heading and with the skills required to be successful. Those countries have fared much better than countries that have relied solely on a more academic kind of approach. All over Central and Northern Europe, between 40 and 70% of young people from roughly the age of 16 move into these joint kind of academic integrated programs that integrate academic program and career and technical education. Someone earlier, I guess it was Congressman Manzullo, mentioned Switzerland. Switzerland happens to be the country that I think is really the exemplar here. It's a country that the World Economics Forum rating of economies is now at the top of the heap. It's a country that if you look at its youth unemployment rate, it's in single digits compared to our 20% youth unemployment rate. And again, it's a country where 70% of young people move into these programs closely aligned with the needs of the economy, and it's a country that continues to have a very strong manufacturing sector. The other thing that's really striking about these programs is that they really are products of a kind of social partnership. And I think what we heard from the last 2 speakers, from Steve and Jorge, give you a sense that at least in Chicago, it's employers and labor and educators and government together that are really shaping some of the programs that really do represent a kind of response to this demand for on the advanced manufacturing side. And I think the Chicago example, both the Manufacturing Renaissance Council itself and Austin Poly, and we'll hear more about that later, really do provide kind of exemplars for where I think we as a country need to move. Just one last comment about these systems in other countries. These systems that I'm describing, by the way, these countries are still proud to call their systems vocational education systems. We, for a bunch of reasons, because of our history with vocational education, often being seen as kind of second class as a dumping ground, we've kind of changed our language. We now talk about career and technical education. But in these countries, these systems are mainstream systems. They are serving a broad range of kids. They are preparing kids for a broad range of occupations, high-tech as well as low-tech, white-collar as well as blue-collar. And they have significant status and they have significant sort of resource investments behind them. We in the report also want to, just one more kind of education argument here, and this really has to do with how people learn. I think we have one reason that these programs are as popular as they are is that I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests that By the time kids are 15, 16, 17, a lot of kids want to be in more adult settings. They want to be not just learning by sitting in classrooms, but they want to be engaged in opportunities to really apply their academic knowledge in real-world settings. They want to kind of get on with their life and get on with the beginnings, at least, of this transition from adolescence to adulthood. In European countries, these programs are really deliberately designed not just to give kids kind of employment or job skills, but really have enough structure and enough support over a 3 or 4 year period to really help kids make that transition successfully from adolescence to adulthood. So I think we have a lot to learn from that experience. Thank you.
Let me now invite Bruce Breaker, who serves as the director of the Chicago Manufacturing Renaissance Council. Bruce Breaker also serves as treasurer of the National Institute for Networking Skills, and he's also on the staff for the Tooling and Manufacturing Association for 38 years and was TMA president for 27 of those years. I'd like to welcome Bruce Breaker.
Thanks, Leonard. And Leonard and I work in offices right together there. And hang in there for a few minutes with me, and then you get to listen to what Torres Hughes has to say, which is, I think, the highlight of the program. To encourage a young person to choose between college and a career-related education is a false choice. In the language of ACT's Workday, WorkKey's World of Work map, manufacturing needs people who can work with things, which is manufacturing and processing, and with ideas and things, which is engineering and technology. And ideally, a manufacturing person needs to think and do concurrently. So learn a skill and park your brain at the door doesn't work. In fact, it never has. A couple of weeks ago, I took a 2.5-mile tour around Caterpillar in Aurora. They employ about 4,000 people. They make huge off-road mining equipment and export about 60% of what they make. Our tour guide was an American Welding Society certified welder. Years ago, he stopped welding and took some continuing education courses and learned to teach others to weld. In fact, he teaches huge robots how to weld perfectly every time. Well, after programming robots for a number of years, because of his ability to communicate so well, he's now giving VIP tours of the plant. He took a path from certified welder to programmer to VIP tour guide. Industry-recognized skill standards help organize and evaluate educational systems. Skill standards aren't just industry-recognized, they're industry-written. Standards provide a common language between job providers and educators. Complete a course, complete the required performance, complete the knowledge test, earn a credential. An academically rich educational system with embedded credentials is the most effective way to educate for a career. Skill standards ensure that graduates with skills have skills that recognize market demand. Now, I have nothing against the Amish. I'm sure they're wonderful people. However, to implement an educational and training program focused on the large-scale production of buggy whips in America is probably not a good plan. Relevant skill standards drive relevant education. NIMS and the NAM-Endorse Skills Certification System are leading industry standards. I'm just going to briefly tell you about each of the 5 sets of standards endorsed by NAM's Manufacturing Institute. ACT, National Career Readiness Certificate. It's a portable, evidence-based credential that measures essential workplace skills and is a reliable predictor of workplace success in the areas of reading for information, applied math, and locating information. So NCRC helps individuals develop the skills for the jobs that are needed, and it gives employers a tool for selecting people who are trained and trainable. There's 4 levels of certification that an individual can receive through the ACT system. Bronze requires a 3, and that says that you're good for 35% of the jobs. Silver is a 4. You can do 65% of the jobs. Gold, 5 or above, you can do 90% of the jobs. And platinum, 6 or above, you can do 99% of the jobs. go to your local library or someplace. You can actually take that test and see if you're qualified to do what you're doing for a living. It might be kind of fun to do that. Many CNC machining educators recommend participants earn at least a silver, which is the equivalent to grades 6 through 9 before entering a beginning machining class. It's important to set that baseline before moving a person to the next level. Another one of the sets of skills is Manufacturing Skill Standards Council. It's a training and assessment system that focuses on core skills for production and material handling workers. So production technician or logistics associate or technician is what a person earns going through the MSSC system. The American Welding Society, I mentioned them earlier, certifies welders and weld inspectors and also robotic arc welding operators and technicians. A weld just simply must not fail. It can't be done. So you need a performance-based standard to ensure that a welder knows exactly what he or she is doing. NIMS, the program that's near and dear to my heart. I've been involved with them since we formed in 1995. 52 credentials, 32,000 have been issued so far. We're at about 6,000 so far this year, having our best year ever and growing. That's CNC and manual machining and CNC programming. CNC is computer numerical control programming. Various types of metal forming and metal fabrication, die and mold making, and machine building and machine maintenance. You can't find maintenance workers. NIMS accredits educational programs and provides detailed guidance on setting up competency-based apprenticeship systems. You don't need 4 years necessarily to learn the skills. Maybe you can do it in 2. That's what competency-based means. And finally, Society of Manufacturing Engineers, the higher level certifications for the knowledge workers, of which manufacturing needs to have many, certified manufacturing technologist, certified manufacturing engineer, engineering manager, professional certification, and Lean and Six Sigma certifications. I'm going to wrap it up here with a few comments about Austin Polytechnical Academy. I tell my friends in manufacturing, especially from my Tooling and Manufacturing Association days, about Austin Polytech, located on the west side of Chicago. I tell them 89 students have earned 125 credentials. The foundational credential they've earned is in material measurement and safety. You have to start there. And then they move into the skill positions: computer numerical control, CNC, turning, which is one skill, or milling, which is another related skill. Now this year they're tackling CNC programming, set up and operate. A higher skill level, a greater challenge, but in much greater demand programming. Employers are excited about how Austin combines CNC machining skills with strong college prep academics, project lead the way, contextual learning to prepare individuals for careers in manufacturing. And as Mr. Kirsten mentioned earlier, 67 partners that believe APA is doing an excellent job of building a bridge from education to career. And Austin became the only NIMS certified secondary high school program to be accredited in the state of Illinois. So diplomas and degrees are really good to have, but a credential leads to a career in manufacturing. National and international skill and knowledge-based portable and stackable credentials. Look in your literature that we passed out to see what all that means. Enable the career pathway to effectively combine standards-based education with strong academics. Credentials combined with academics can propel Americans into positions that may include the corner office with a leather chair and the opportunity to run a business. And that's what credentials can definitely lead to. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Now you've heard from the experts and the policymakers and the business owners. Now we want to sort of turn your attention to a student who has been impacted by the kinds of programs that our speakers have spoken about today. Torres Hughes is a senior at Austin Polytechnical Academy on Chicago's west side. He was born in Oak Park, Illinois, and raised in the Chicago-Austin area. As part of Austin Polytechnic Academy's Manufacturing and Engineering career program, Torres has participated in over 5 job shadowing experiences, several plant tours, and a paid internship with the Center for Labor and Community Research. He now is one of our colleagues at the Center for Labor and Community Research, where he works as CLCR's youth organizer. I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Torres Hughes to the podium.
Good morning. My name is Torres Hughes. I'm a senior at Austin Polytechnical Academy, and I'd like to tell you about my school and how important it is to my community. I grew up in Austin, which is a neighborhood on the west side of Chicago, in the heart of Chicago. I am one of 11 brothers and sisters, and like most of the people I grew up with, I was raised by my grandmother. My grandmother passed away last December, but her influence is the reason I'm here today. I started at Austin Polytech as a sophomore after having a tough freshman year at a different school. I heard about Austin Polytech that they had this engineering and manufacturing program. And at the time I didn't know anything about engineering or what manufacturing was, but I had a feeling that it was something that I should know about. Austin Polytech is a college and career prep high school in the heart of Austin neighborhood. Besides all the regular college prep courses, I'm taking AP English this year. All students take 3 to 4 years of pre-engineering classes, as well as at least 1 year of machine shop, where we earn industry credentials. Last year, I earned 2 National Institute for Metalworking Skills credentials. These are the 2 credentials. Although it's exciting to know that these credentials can get me a good job after high school if I want it, I also like that our school exposes us to a wider variety of careers that go hand in hand with manufacturing. For example, our school has a partnership with the prestigious John Marshall Law School, which one of their professors and several law students come to my school and give workshops to students on patent law. I love this program, and I've already participated in 2 mock trial competitions, and the 3rd mock trial competition I'll be competing in is a couple weeks away. I've earned $15,000 in tuition waivers to the law school. I like that my school considers a career in manufacturing and also include being a patent lawyer who works with manufacturers to patent new technology. I've also learned a lot about the importance of ownership and entrepreneurship in manufacturing. Through all the experiences from the plant tours, job shadowing, and internships I've had, I can see myself owning a manufacturing company someday. Also, I know my friends who go to other high schools don't have the opportunities I've had at Austin Polytech. My school really gives us opportunities and options for success. Just this year, a friend of mine who just graduated at Austin Polytech is the perfect example of how Austin Polytech can rebuild a community. Marquise was known as being a class clown. There was no situation he couldn't turn into a joke. His favorite thing to do at my school was to play baseball and football. And I didn't even know Marquise was even interested in engineering. But one day, when he was a junior, he went on a job shadow to Laystrom Manufacturing. And this manufacturing company is just a few miles away from my school. Next thing I knew, Marquise earned his first NIMS credential and was offered a summer job at Laystrom. Then when he became a senior, he earned another NIMS credential. And he was asked to job shadow again, this time shadowing the Laystrom Manufacturing's head engineer. By the middle of his senior year, Laystrom offered Marquise a full-time job as quality control technician. Marquise told me they created this position for him because they really needed new leadership in their company. Most of the employees are over the age of 50. So these are just good examples of how my school is providing education to help young people get good jobs with good companies in my community who need talented people like Marquise and myself. High school students need to know about these kinds of opportunities, and we need the academic and the social and professional support to get connected to real-world careers. Austin Polytech is accomplishing those needs, and we need help to continue fulfilling the vision to prepare our students to be the next generation of leaders in the ever-changing local and global economy who are grounded and inspired by community values. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Dan Sweeney, who is my boss and also the Executive Director for the Center for Labor and Community Research. And he's also the Managing Director of the National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign. And Dan Sweeney's going to talk to us about the recommendations today and kind of sum up what you've heard. So, Dan?
Thank you very much. It's my deepest thanks to Congressman Mazzullo, Congresswoman Schakowsky, and our audience taking time out of your day, and our really great panel of speakers. I am the Managing Director of the National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign. Our purpose in today's briefing is to start a discussion with you and the networks that you represent on how we can chart a new direction for our economy and our society in the weeks and months to come. As Congresswoman Schakowsky said, we have little time to waste. There are two important questions I must answer this morning. First of all, exactly what have we said today that's different? And exactly what have we said that's really worth your time and resources in light of the enormous pressures you face from your districts and really grappling with the problems of our nation? The National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign has three distinct strategic points and three very specific recommendations to make to you this morning. First of all, the three strategic points. In the context of the global economy that is drenched with dangers, tough competition from both the developed world and the developing world, and very complicated trade and financial pressures, we advanced a clear strategic direction for our nation. The National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign believes that we must shake off the skepticism that many have had about manufacturing for over the last 30 years. We need to declare to ourselves and to the world that we are determined to be the #1 global leader in advanced manufacturing. The role of advanced manufacturing in our society is the most important public policy debate of this decade. It is an issue of profound public importance. Economically, advanced manufacturing is the only economic sector that can create a broad-based middle class with average wages and benefits approaching $75,000 a year, and with each manufacturing job generating 5 other jobs in the economy. It is the sector that can generate the tax base that we need to support social, educational, and health programs that our citizens need. Socially, work in advanced manufacturing is transforming, involving technology, teamwork, critical thinking, and effective communications. Employees in today's manufacturing sector become better individuals, better citizens, and better family leaders during work, as well as having a secure standard of living after work. And we are reminded daily of the evolving global environmental crisis. It won't be lawyers suing companies or activists blocking waste dumps or protecting trees. Those may be necessary steps, but finally it will be engineers and industrial developers that can and will restore our environment with new products and new processes. My second strategic point. In the context of a polarizing and fractious political and policy debate, we have and are creating broad, bipartisan strategic partnerships that are meaningful, unlikely, and productive. The Manufacturing Renaissance Council, modeled in place in Chicago and now in San Francisco, brings together businesses with labor, community, government, educators into solid, joint programmatic work. We bring together very traditional Democrats and very traditional Republicans around a focused yet profound economic agenda. The National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign has the ability to bring these partnerships to cities and communities throughout the country with your help. Third, in the context of national focus in education that only sees success measured in college acceptance and standardized test scores, we have put forward both in policy and action a case for contextualized learning and multiple pathways for success. Our practice is consistent with the approach described by Bob Schwartz earlier, and their really important document, Pathways to Prosperity. We have schools partnering with companies, and these are public schools. We have students learning skills and aptitudes essential for success in well-paid, unfilled jobs. We have students being exposed to an exciting world of work before they graduate, giving them a reason and a motivation to stay in school. Everyone is talking about the fact that we have 14 million people unemployed and 3 million jobs unfilled, Yet filling those jobs would reduce our national unemployment rate by 3 points. The National Manufacturing Renaissance Council is doing something about it. And you can see, you can have the same effect in your own district. We have 3 very specific recommendations, and we think these are the kinds of action steps that the nation is really begging for. First of all, we call on each of you to join the National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign and to bring this to your district. By being the global leader in advanced manufacturing, we can speak of a future in America with confidence that our children will continue the cycle of being better off than their parents. Second, we ask you to understand and support the NAM-endorsed manufacturing skill certification system. It's an absolutely essential framework for education and training in our school system. Third, and our sort of unique contribution to the discussion, is that we're asking for your assistance in creating an innovation equity fund for secondary education that's described in more detail in your program. We've heard about Austin Polytech, and we've seen one of our best students. There's a model of public high school education in the inner city. It's creating actual opportunity for students and companies, not just hope. Already others around the country want to replicate this model in their district. This kind of polytechnical education takes investment. Austin Polytech, as Steve mentioned, has leveraged over $250,000 in private funds from companies and manufacturing trade associations over the last 3 years in the middle of a recession. Companies like Water Saver Faucet. This kind of private investment can make a few schools possible, but not enough schools to meet the demand of our manufacturing companies in America. There won't be new funds in the current budget, we all know that, but there can be a reallocation of public funds that allow this investment in our future. And really you in the room have the expertise and the power to make this concept a reality. The fund that we're describing, a $65 million fund, would support the creation of 20 Austin Polytech type schools in cities around the country to demonstrate to educators, political leaders, manufacturers, parents, and students that a focus on manufacturing in our society is a focus that will lift all boats, a direction that will benefit all of our communities, not just some. It's an investment that will tap into all the sources of innovation and creativity we see in students like Torres, the resource that our country sorely needs if we're to successfully compete in the global economy and fulfill the aspirations of our citizens. The National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign is a new private-public partnership that believes the best years in the country are still in front of us, but not unless we dramatically change our direction. We have the key components in place. We have companies that thrive on innovation and creative work, yet are really desperate to find the talent they need to compete. We have young people, adults, with an absolute desire to have meaningful, stable, and secure careers. We have advanced technology, transportation, and educational infrastructure. These key components need to be powerfully attached to each other if we're to remain the symbol of a modern, democratic, and sustainable society for our own residents and the rest of the world. We truly look forward to meeting with each of you in meetings after this in the days and weeks to come to help us shape, in fact, a coherent, strong policy and legislative agenda for the National Manufacturing Renaissance Campaign. Thanks.
We have a few moments for a Q&A session. I'm going to invite Garrick Davis up to lead that portion of our program. And just for a moment, if all my colleagues at CLCR could just stand for a moment or let yourselves be known. These are my colleagues at the Center for Labor and Community Research. For more information about our action programs, our policy initiatives, you may see one of my colleagues who are standing. Thank you. Garrick Davis is the Legislative Director at the National Urban Lease Policy Institute and a friend of the NMRC, and also sits on the board for the Center for Labor and Community Research. I'd like to invite Garrick Davis up to lead a few moments for a Q&A session. Garrick?
Thank you, everyone. I know that we're at the end of our time here, and I want to take a couple questions from the group as you have them. I will say, take advantage of what you see here. You've got a committee for hire that has solutions in place that they can talk with you about, bipartisan. You've got education, labor, and you've got the business owners all in one place. So with that said, let's hear what sorts of questions you all might have. Don't be shy.
I was wondering if you implemented, discussed, or considered these programs, the kind of training and education that you've been discussing.
Leonard, would you like to re-entry programs?
Re-entry programs?
Yes.
Yeah, we're actually in Chicago. Well, actually, first of all, NIMS, National Institute for Metalworking Skills, has been working in Folsom Prison in California, and has now been contracted with, I think 8 other prisons in California, and is also working in Minneapolis and Minnesota, Minneapolis. Because they're providing people who are re-entering the community from prison, first of all, a transition process in prison, beginning to learn math, technology, use of computers. And in transition houses, they can then enhance those skills, and then once they're released, they can really work on machinery. And if a person returning from the criminal justice system has a credential, is honest and drug-free, there are some of those 600,000 jobs are waiting for them. And these are jobs that actually sustain a family, sustain a person, and really prevent the return to prison. And so we're now exploring a similar program in Chicago with the Safer Foundation and with other community organizations. So we think of all the programs, this is the kind of program that a person can learn, get a nationally recognized portable credential, and that opens a pathway to reverse the kinds of trends we've seen in the past.
Other questions? Sir?
I cleared my calendar so I can listen to the presentation. I would just share with you, Steve, what you're doing is right. Don't wait for government on these programs. I had the director of OSCP in my office yesterday, looking for $100 million to do a study on critical minerals, part of the problem with permanent magnets. People come to this town with great ideas, and so often it's dependent upon getting an earmark, or trying to wedge somewhere into the federal government. Don't do that. There's a continuous shortage of money. Government gets involved, it usually screws everything up. If the program's out there, there'll be so many parameters involved in it that you won't have the freedom to do it. And Steve, we have a situation back home. I got a call from a fellow at the machine shop, about 80 years old. Couldn't find 2 guys to run a machine shop. And I got a hold of the president of the community college, which is, there's so much activity going on there, Jack Becker in Rockford. Within 4 days, they had set up an apprenticeship program for 2 machinists. 4-day downtime just to set it up. With the company participating with the community college that has the technical abilities there to do it. So much can be done oftentimes on an ad hoc basis. I think what you're doing is, it's great. It gives the big picture. You've got a great form to it. But the element that could be added to it would be taking the frustration of people like Steve and Leah's dad, who's involved in plastics manufacturing in Indiana, and just going out there and being creative. I was at a facility in Crystal Lake several months ago. 9 employees, 4 were young men under 25. This place does insert injection molds, pretty sophisticated tool and die builders. And I said, all right, how'd you get those guys? And he said he went to the high school when they were 16 and 17 years old, invited them to come to his shop, got them interested in the art form of tool and die making, pays for their 2 years of community college, or whatever certifications are necessary. I mean, just to get Steve, 4 guys out of 11, that are 4 out of 9, to be working in your shop. It's the type of creativity that the individual manufacturers themselves have to do, in addition to, I think, is an absolutely stellar presentation in the different areas that you're trying to do to piece together the entire whole. But the word is, there's not enough money in Washington to take care of all the needs. You don't need Washington's money to do this, because it's too tight down with the regulations to make it work.
Well, thank you. Does anyone on the board have anything to add? If not, I'm going to take one more question if we have it. In the back?
I think maybe one thing, maybe just answer. What this is truly a private-public partnership, so we didn't wait. Austin Tech began on its own. We raised money, companies invested. But what we recognize is that if we talk about a future of manufacturing in this country, and we hear what Rob said, Atkinson, we really only have a 10 or 15-year horizon. So this has to go to scale. So, I mean, what you're describing, I mean, we don't wait, and this is where there is this merger between private and public interest. By setting a high standard in public education, we've now attracted partnerships with private companies, but we do need, where possible, government direction to leverage it so we can go to scale, or our manufacturing sector doesn't have the capacity to compete. So it is jointly a private-public initiative.
Okay, we've got one more question. Right there.
How can we help facilitate some of these public-private partnerships in our congressional districts and work with people so we can get maybe high schools to adopt some of these, if not in a codified way, some of these college and career readiness standards, maybe on a more an agreement basis? Is there templates, is there suggestions that you have? I think it's really important.
You know, Dan, I'm going to have Dan talk a little bit about some of our efforts in California as well as what happened in Chicago. But what I can say, it starts with conversations like this because you got to reach a critical mass at the local level where the understanding is that the policymakers are in attune to the actual program and listening. And then they're going to look for the groundswell from the community because the business owners, again, they have that need for the skilled workers that is unending, but they both kind of gauge one another's interest, and you need to kind of cultivate both at the same time. Dan, if you want to add a little more as to how you got things going in Chicago.
I think the key thing, I think the economy, the global economy and our national economy now begs for this approach. It begs for this kind of partnership. It begs for these kinds of programs. There's an immediate payoff. And we started with a freshman class, only a freshman class in Austin Polytech just 5 years ago. We now have 65 companies who are invested, engaged, not for charitable reasons, not for political reasons, because of naked self-interest. In other words, the opportunity is there. It goes back to the congressman's point. In each city, I mean, the structure is there, the ideas are there, and we're a resource for you. And so you have our information. But it takes leadership at this point. A person who has that vision can catalyze that partnership, the partnership that brings all the key players together. It's not just our idea. That's, for example, that's where the German competitors, that's how they operate. They have business, labor, government, community, and educators at the table to design a program so nobody can obstruct the program as they implement it. But I'm saying we're here to work with each of your districts. This thing can grow quickly, particularly, and it really does require having the local champion that could be the elected official, that could be the local labor leader, it could be a business leader. But we need that leadership to galvanize, but then things fall into place quickly.
And ma'am, in the back, we're going to give you the final question.
Okay, I just have one question. I think Torres brought up a really good point about how the manufacturing sector at a certain company, most of the guys who are manufacturing were above the age of 50. And with an aging population, will this country be able to have the workforce to replace those who will be leaving the manufacturing sector?
You know, I don't have macro level numbers, but again, the demographic trends that Torres has alluded to and that your question centers around, I mean, it's pretty clear that there is going to continue to be a dearth of manufacturing, skilled manufacturing talent in the United States. And one thing that I also mentioned to Dan that I find a little unsettling is the number of foreign delegations that are paying rapt attention to this model. We've seen delegations come from Australia, from Switzerland, and places far and wide, yet at the same time we're kind of clamoring for attention in the United States on a regional or local federal level. So your point is well taken, that underscores your question. I don't have those numbers, but I share that concern.
Well, I would just add that the study that we did really highlighted that. That was the problem, is you had baby boomers, retiring, you had no pipeline to fill those jobs. In addition to, one of the speakers mentioned the skills gap. I think it was Congressman Mazzullo mentioned that we have a skills gap in the country. That's the other thing. Unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe the bad economy has actually helped us with that because people are working longer because they can't afford to retire. So it's extending that and pushing that out a little bit, but we got to get that pipeline going, and that's the reason, sense of urgency around getting to scale with this, because you have to have that filled, because we have that short window, that 10-year window. So that's the bell that we're trying to ring, really.
The macro numbers I've heard is there are 70 million baby boomers retiring, of which I'm one of the older ones, to be replaced by 40 million millennials. So if you have 70 million retiring and 40 million there to take up the gap, you have a 30 million gap. So manufacturing and others are all going to be fighting real hard to compete for the good people. And by good, I mean trained, skilled. skills.
So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McInnes for his closing comments, but I want to thank you all for your time and attention. It's been a fantastic conversation, and we're looking forward to having meetings as needed, so please avail yourselves. Our time is your resource. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Again, thank you to Congressman Manzula and Congresswoman Jen Schakowsky for their effort in this. On page 4 of your handout is the information for the Center for Labor and Community Research. We look forward to staying in dialogue with you about these important issues. And thank you again for your attention today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.